Hello, I'm SID LOWE and I'm a football journalist here in Spain. The Clásico always feels like a game that defines a season, even when ultimately it doesn't. And coming into this game, even though it's very early, there is that normal sense of this game potentially being decisive, of it being coming at a very, very important time for both clubs. Certainly, if Barcelona to win this game, it would be a big step towards them opening a gap at the top of the table, 6-point gap that could well prove to be very, very important at the end of the season. Also, I think because of the pressure that's building on Real Madrid at the moment, this is extremely important for them. The teams come into this in very different states of form. Real Madrid, of course, were beaten in the last game before the international break by Sevilla, and that, I think, has provoked a number of doubts that on the face of it, seem quite bizarre, considering it's only the first time they've been beaten all season. Barcelona have been beaten more, but they've overcome the absence of Leo Messi and have played really, really well over the last 10 games. So you would feel like Barcelona come into this game as favourites, but I think the advice that Luis Suarez offered up is very good advice, that when you're favourites, it tends to be when you get beaten. Defeat's always damaging for the team that loses the Clásico, but I think for Barcelona and for Real Madrid, it's particularly significant this time around, particularly for Real Madrid. I think a defeat for Real Madrid, given the pressure that they've been under, would be very, very damaging indeed. Rafa Benitez has been questioned all season. He's been very defensive about the accusations that his team is defensive, and the way they were beaten by Sevilla, I think, increased that sense that it still doesn't entirely convince. They've had terrible injury problems, but I also think there's been an element of the media and even some fans who've been kind of waiting for Benitez to fail, and I think if Real Madrid were to be defeated by Barcelona and defeated comfortably, then I think the pressure would be really, really intense for Benitez. And it would be very interesting to see how he responds to that, because I must say I'm not sure that throughout the season he's responded that well so far. For Barcelona, defeat would be rather different. I think they can almost assimilate a defeat. Now, of course, it will damage them. Of course, it would put Real Madrid top of the table. But I think the fact that Barcelona go into this game with a 3-point lead, with a sense of having not allowed Real Madrid to escape them, even over the 10 games in which Leo Messi has been away, gives them a certain degree of comfort. Puts them in a position where even if they were to lose this, they would feel like they were in a reasonably strong position still. So I think Madrid are under pressure. I think Barcelona can play with a little bit more freedom. That said, it may well be that pressure is a good thing for a team. That the desire and the need to win is potentially beneficial. It's 10 years ago today that Ronaldinho scored an incredible 2 goals at the Santiago Bernabéu. And something happened that never normally happens in a Clásico. The fans stood up to applaud him, the Real Madrid fans. One of the things that I think this game always does is it always leaves an image that we remember for a very long time. What happens in this game is magnified. What happens in this game tends to take on a significance that perhaps other games don't have. And I think it was one of the things that makes this so huge. And that moment, watching the Bernabéu stand to applaud Ronaldinho, I think is one of those moments you think, okay, this is kind of historic. There's a phrase that gets used a lot in the Spanish media where they talk about the FIFA virus, the damage that clubs suffer at the hands of the international teams. And that was one of the factors that I think we all thought might be really significant for this Clásico, because of course it comes off the back of a 2-week international break. Now normally Real Madrid and Barcelona lose 10, 11, 12 players who go all around the world playing for their national teams and sometimes come back injured, come back fatigued, come back in poor physical condition, or at least relatively poor physical condition. This time around is a little bit different. If you go through the Real Madrid team, I think it's 7 of their players have escaped international duty. Isco went with the Spanish national team and pulled out immediately. And Real Madrid are bit by bit getting all of their players back fit, which may well be a key factor. The only really significant doubt going into the Clásico is the fitness of Karim Benzema. Barcelona, on the other hand, are in a curious position as well. They've lost a number of players to international break, but possibly not the really key ones. Leo Messi, because he's recovering from an injury, has been training with Barcelona over the last 2 weeks. Luis Suarez saw out the last of his international game bans with Uruguay, so has been training with them. But the big question mark there is Neymar, who of course has travelled halfway around the world again and only come back in time to have 1 training session with Barcelona. That may or may not have a big impact on this game, and it's going to be very, very hard indeed to call. In part because I'm a coward, in part because I like to sit on the fence. Also in part though because I see this as being perhaps a bit more balanced than people believe. I think we're looking at a 2-2 draw.